Hey there, everybody. I got a new one for today. I'm always into doing stuff, odd stuff. Used to do this when I was a kid, and I got back into it a couple years ago. And let me show you what I'm up to today. Maple syrup. And this tree is actually a black walnut tree, but I do have several maple trees tapped just in the same way. Just got a tap in the tree, running down to a little T, and then down into this bucket, and you can see it dripping there a little bit. The black walnut trees don't put out as much sap as the maple trees, but I just been adding it to my, I've done a couple batches of just black walnut syrup, and it's pretty similar to maple syrup, so I've just been adding the extra sap to the maple sap. But let's go over to my little setup I got going on. I'm doing a little boil today, and let's take a look at that. My old way of doing it was with this big stock pot here on a deep fryer, and that worked. It worked pretty well, but man, you blow through the propane pretty quick. So this season, I actually bought this little evaporator on Amazon, and it holds about 15 gallons of sap. And I've already boiled down a little bit yesterday and just added it to this. So we're doing probably about, I don't know, between 15 and 20 gallons of maple sap. And I got a little fire started under it. I just made a little, I don't know what you want to call that, fire pit out of some cinder blocks. And I got a little bit of dry wood to get this thing going. I got some other wood kind of drying out here. But we're going to be feeding this thing all day. And as you can see, it's already starting to evaporate a little bit. It's not quite boiling yet. But this is kind of the long, drawn-out process of just getting that sap hot enough. It just came right out of the tree. I ran it through a little filter, caught one of those coffee filters, basically. And then just put it right into here, get it boiling. And then you just start reducing. And this takes, boy, for this much, we're probably evaporating 2-3 gallons of liquid an hour. And the stuff that remains is the sugars. And you're basically just concentrating the sugar at this point. You can do this on your stove. Like I said, I did it on a turkey fryer. But the bigger surface area of this evaporator allows for a lot more vapor to come off of this. So you want a bigger surface area. That's kind of the key to this thing, in a really hot fire. So we're going to get this thing boiling. It's probably, I don't know what the temperature of it is now, probably 160, 180 degrees of the liquid inside. And it boils at 212 just like water until it gets down to a certain concentration of sugar. And by that time, I usually finish it off in the house because you have a lot more control. And you want to take it off when it's like 218, 219, something like that, because the temperature will allow it, or the sugars in it will allow the temperatures to start rising in the liquid. But this is where we're at for now, and we will come back to this. Here we are about a half hour later. This thing's really boiling now. That foam kind of forms on top when it starts boiling. Picked up a bunch of the sticks in my front yard. I'm going to throw those under there at some point too. Might as well burn those up. But we're moving pretty good here. Anyways, all right, everybody. We'll come back after a while, after this starts reducing. Well, here we are a few hours later. You can see how much that's gone down. I added about another gallon of sap to it. And we're going to let her boil down for a couple more hours, and then I'm going to drain it, run it through a filter, and then normally what I do is put it on the turkey fryer so I can fine-tune it a little bit better than out of this. But you can see it's, I don't know if you can see, but it's definitely turning a darker color. So we're getting closer. We're down to this now. I don't know, there's probably 2-3 gallons in there, and we're gonna drain it, run it through the filter, and it still needs quite a ways to go, but I think here shortly we're going to start finishing it on the propane so I can dial it in a little easier. This is pretty tough to do one-handed here. Whoop. Put her in there. There we go. See, it's still pretty thin, but it's starting to look a little more like maple syrup for sure. And then we'll do that. Then you can see I put a couple through already. It's quite a bit of grime that comes out of it. So this is a very important step. And I like to do it while it's still thin so it goes through the filters easy. And then you'll have to filter it a couple more times, but this is a pretty good setup. And that is why the filtering process is so important. Look at all that gunk that came out of there. And we got a little more to run, but that's about it. I'm going to go clean this filter out and do the last of it. Okay, so we have it down to that, and it looks much clearer now that it's run through the filter. I'm going to put it on the turkey fryer, probably about an hour, somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe 45 minutes. We'll see. Got a nice boil going here. Gonna boil it for probably another half hour, 45 minutes. If on a scale of 1 to 10, if 1 is pure sap and 10 is syrup, we're at probably about a 7 right now. And well, probably about a 7, and I'm gonna take it off when it's about a 9. So I'm gonna finish it on the stove in the house, like fine tune it, but we want to get as much water out of this as possible at this point. So you can see it's still steaming, but not near as much as the way it was in that evaporator. Okay, we got her down to this point. You can see where I started there at that top ring, and I'm going to let it cool off for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to run it through that filter, and hopefully all of that will fit into there. So 20 gallons of sap have been reduced, and it's gonna be, I'd say, there's probably a gallon and a half or gallon, maybe tops 2 gallons, and 20 gallons of sap makes about a half a gallon of syrup. So I'm thinking it's gonna fit in there. There we go. Running through the filter. You can see it's still pretty watery. Definitely not thick like syrup just yet, but we're getting closer. All right, down to this point. Still probably about half of that's going to evaporate out. We'll see. All right, well, we're starting to get a little bit closer now. You can see by the way it's boiling there. And normally the sap boils at 212, and my thermometer, depending, 214. There we go. It's like 214, 215, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I'm going to put this in a smaller pot so I can control it a little bit better. And you want to go to like 218, 219 on this. So let's transfer things over, and I'll make another little video segment here when we're even closer yet. Okay, so I am in a smaller pot. I ran this thing through another filter, and this is what they call, I think they call it like maple sand, and it's kind of like the consistency of pudding. It's kind of gritty, and it is the particulates that are coming out of it. So if you want real nice clear syrup when it goes in the bottle, you got to get that out. So I filtered it one more time. I lost a little bit along the way. I accidentally had a little boil over. I wasn't watching close enough. but I think we're getting pretty close here. So I turn down the heat. So we're 216 right now. And I'd like to get to like a consistent 217, or actually 218, maybe bordering on 219. So just going to let it keep going here for a few more minutes. But this is the process, part of the process where you can kind of screw it up. So you got to watch it real close, keep measuring the temperature. And when it hits about 218, 219, that's when you pull it. All right, so you can see how this is looking right now. And we're like 217. And it goes real quick when you get it at this end stage. So I keep turning the heat down a little bit on it because I don't want it, it'll boil over real quick on you. So I got like down, I'm like at 2.8, so like low medium. And once it gets up to 218, which is real close, I'm pulling it. And then since I just ran it through the filter, I'm not gonna filter it one more time before I bottle it. I'm just gonna put it into a funnel and right into a bottle. All right, so this is what we made. I had a little boil over accident. I probably ruined an entire pint or half pint of syrup. But this is a 12-ounce bottle. It's not the clearest stuff I've ever made. And that's even being filtered. You saw how many times I filtered everything. I probably should have filtered it one more time before I bottling it, but it doesn't really affect the taste that much. But these are half pints, so I got 2 pints plus 12 ounce, yeah, about 3 pints, so a little less than a half a gallon, I guess. But, yep, that is that. And now you know how to make maple syrup.